WWE did a pretty poor job of expressing the details regarding the Women's United States Championship. Now, I understand some of you guys may not agree. Some of you guys may agree. We'll talk about it in this video, but it's really important that you guys understand making a first impression actually counts. And for the WWE, for as long as they've been in business and for as long as they've been successful in introducing new championship belts, there have been times where they've introduced new championship belts where I think there was a lot of people getting excited initially, and then eventually these new belts get revealed and people's excitement die down. And I'm actually really afraid that is what's going to happen to these mid-card titles being introduced to Raw and SmackDown. And I said Raw because I do believe WWE is gearing towards the debut of the Intercontinental Championship for the women's division. Now, let me just let you guys know. Initially, they revealed the US title was coming. They did it on SmackDown. And by the way they explained it, it kind of sounded like this belt would also be on Raw. We get the tournament bracket. It is very clear that it is a SmackDown only title because, well, all the superstars competing for it are on SmackDown. So, of course, naturally, the first thing we're all going to speculate is that Raw will be introducing the Intercontinental Women's Championship. I'm going to tell you guys why they should in just a little bit. But it's important that you guys understand that it may not actually happen as soon as you'd think. Now, right now, WWE just simply has a lot going on. Between Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, there's already a lot of titles. There's already a lot of storylines. There's already a lot of things being planned for television. WWE typically plans things long term. And introducing that Intercontinental Championship right now would actually also be relatively a poor idea. Now, I am a very big believer in women's mid-card titles. I've been talking about this for years. I have been very adamant for a long time that they should do it. But for some reason, when WWE launches a new title, we saw this with the 24/7 championship. We saw this with the Cruiserweight championship when they came back with it in 2018, 2019, or whatever it was. And now we're seeing this with the women's mid-card US title. Like, WWE just sometimes gets it wrong. They don't explain things the right way. Sometimes it's confusing. Sometimes they don't immediately push the belt. Sometimes the belt gets introduced and it becomes an afterthought. And that's something that WWE has done quite a few times. With the Women's United States Championship, it does solve a problem for the women's division on SmackDown. Mia Yim, Chelsea Green, Candice LeRae. Those are just three of the names, but there's several more talent who, in my opinion, could benefit from holding a mid-card title and using that as an opportunity to climb the ranks and hopefully eventually become a world champion, right? So we see WWE do this with the North American Championship in NXT. They bring it in. It feels important. There's a lot of stories for it. But at the same time, too, it is a secondary title, and you got to remember that. But for some reason, WWE has done a great job with that title. But the way they explained it with the United States Championship was kind of different. And I think it took away a little bit of excitement for people. Now, I genuinely believe the Intercontinental Championship is coming to the women's division in 2025. And if I were WWE, what I would be doing is crowning the first-time champion literally on Netflix January 6th. You want this episode to be a big deal. There's going to be a lot of attention there. There's going to be a lot of big names there. If you're the WWE, the right thing to do is crown the champion on that episode. And if WWE is smart, they got to reveal this relatively soon so that way we can get the tournament going underway and then crown the winner January 6th. At the time of this recording, it is 11/19/2024. So we obviously do have a little bit of time. The way WWE is doing these tournaments is triple threat matches, which I actually think is another issue, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But WWE's got to do this for Raw, and they got to properly express that the title that's coming to Raw is specifically for Raw, and the one that's in the United States Championship belt, that one needs to be expressed as specifically a SmackDown title. I like the idea. Listen, I like the idea of mid-card titles. You'll never hear me complain about it, but it's really important that they get these belts off the ground the right way. Now, you might be wondering, Ango, why are you saying this? It doesn't seem like that big of a deal. Well, they split up the tag team titles, and quite frankly, they've done a pretty poor job with those. So, you know, if there's one thing they can learn from AEW, it's how to book the mid-card title for the women. You know, NXT does a great job of it. The main roster can learn from NXT, and the main roster can learn from AEW. The TBS championship sometimes feels even more important than the world championship, which isn't always a bad problem. Sometimes that's really good based on who's holding the belt. And, you know, with rumors that Becky Lynch is coming back, Becky Lynch should be the first ever women's intercontinental champion. You got to have a strong name for that. And if you're the WWE and you introduce the IC title for the women and Becky Lynch wins that belt, I think it's obviously going to be really big when she eventually has to drop it to somebody else. And there are people who could benefit from that. You know, the reality is that WWE's rosters are incredibly loaded, and I don't believe Becky Lynch should be carrying world championship gold right now. I think even with Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley and what's happening there, I want to see fresh faces in the title picture. And I'm not asking for much. I'm just asking for something a little bit different from time to time. And if Becky Lynch is the one carrying the Intercontinental Championship, but then you are building up, you know, the next competitor for that win over Becky Lynch is really, really huge. And look, Becky Lynch is going to be a future Hall of Famer anyways, but it does add to an already impressive resume that she was the first ever women's intercontinental champion. I also think, you know, like WWE's in a prime spot right now. Like business is hot. So if you do this on Netflix and, you know, or let's just say Becky Lynch doesn't win the belt, but she's in the finals, and I don't know who she goes up against in this particular situation, but, you know, if she's in the finals and she gives it to an up and comer, imagine what that would do for WWE, because the first episode of Raw on Netflix will probably be the most viewed ever episode, and it's going to get a lot of attention. And like, if you're bringing an up and comer in that situation, beating Becky Lynch, like you're creating new stars, right? And I think that's one of the beauties of this particular situation. Like there's a lot of opportunity for WWE, but you got to capitalize on it. And like I said, I just don't think they did a really good job of introducing the women's belt for the US title. Obviously, we'll see how the tournament plays out and we'll see who wins it and how they book it. But in terms of revealing the belt, I felt like they left a lot of questions on the table. And I think there was a lot of confusion there. And when there's already confusion before something begins, it kind of turns people away or turns people off. And I would like to see WWE rectify that by learning from their mistakes by revealing the IC title correctly. Now, of course, there's going to be a lot of people are going to say this, and I know it. I've seen it before in comments before, but a lot of people will mention the fact that this is too many title belts. And I understand where people are coming from there. But the reality is the roster is stacked, the roster is deep, and it's really important that WWE actually utilizes people in great positions. And, you know, not everybody could be a world champion, but if you have a secondary title and you allow that to be the ladder per se, allow people to climb the ladder and see what happens. You know what I mean? Like, see what happens when people climb that ladder and see how fans react. Like, if I was looking at the United States Championship, I would be immediately putting it on Mia Yim. You know, that's what I would do. Why? She is somebody that's had some great moments on television, but she hasn't really been given great opportunities. You give her the belt, it gives her an opportunity to get over with the crowd, and you got to just replicate that success for WWE Raw. Perfect model of this: Tony Khan TBS Championship, Shawn Michaels Women's North American Championship. Just really good examples of those belts feeling important and feeling part of the show, and the way that they revealed them and just initially announced them made it seem like a big deal. And that's what I want for the IC title, because I do feel like to a certain extent the US title did not get that treatment. So we'll see what happens, guys. But women's US title, women's IC title should be interesting.